Hi everyone, my name's Daryl. So behind me, you see my beautiful 2012 Nissan GTR Premium. Today's a sad day. I've made the decision to sell my GTR. You might be wondering why I would want to sell this, and basically I just am ready to move on. I love this car. It has been really relatively problem-free, but I kind of got into hiking a while ago, and I really want a vehicle that can go off-road, that can be like a convertible and also can tow. And so I really want to get a Jeep Wrangler. And so selling my GTR will help me get the Wrangler. So that's basically the reason why. Now, I wanted to give a little tour of my GTR. I would imagine most of the folks that are interested in this might be coming from out of state, and I really want to be fully transparent with the condition of the car, and so there's no surprises when you come out here to inspect it. So that's what I'm going to do today. This is kind of a rare GTR in that I've been the only owner of the car. I bought it in, I think, April of 2011, pretty much right on my birthday. And yeah, I've been the owner ever since. And also, the car is completely stock. So I haven't abused the car. I've been very delicate with the car. So a really good GTR owner will likely modify it and do full bolt-ons and really stretch the GTR's limits. But that wasn't me. I just wanted a daily driver that would be fun, that would look cool, and that's what this car for me is. Now, the car does have a lot of mileage on it. So it has 129,000, I think 500 miles. I drove this thing for the first 6 years daily, and I basically just found places for this thing to go. So I put a lot of mileage on it. Easily, I think in the first year I put close to 18,000 miles on it at least. I think a little bit more than that. I do have the service records for it, so you can see the kind of mileage I put on it and when I put the mileage on it. So that way it'll give you more information about the car. But basically, after daily driving it for 6 years and putting so much mileage on it, I really made the decision at that point to get another car that was going to be my daily driver, and then the GTR took over weekend duties. And so over the last 6 years, I haven't driven it that much. So the car is ready to go. And what I want to do is just, first of all, talk about how the car performs. So mechanically, as far as I can tell, the car is perfect. There were a couple of major services that I had performed on the car. I mean, it's been very reliable, but the one thing that did happen, I think it was at around 80,000 miles or so, was the front differential went out. When I was doing an oil change, they had noticed it was leaking, and so I had the front differential replaced. The other thing that happened, and this happened at about, I think 115,000 miles, was I started getting the check engine light. I think it was P0041 or something like that. And basically the timing chain needed to be replaced, and so I had that service done. And the front differential I don't think is typical for GTRs, but the timing chain is. And so typically the timing chain needs to be replaced at about 90,000 miles on normal GTRs. But mine lasted a little bit longer, basically because I didn't abuse the car at all. I'm asking $55,000 for the car. Now that can be somewhat negotiable depending on the interest level that I get on the car and how many people are interested in coming to see it. But I did check the Blue Book value on the car. I did put down that it was in excellent condition. I consider it to be in excellent condition. And it's about $43,000, the Blue Book, but I don't know if it really takes into account on GTRs the fact that most GTRs, when they're being sold and used, I mean, they've had 5 or 6 different owners, and who knows what they did to the car during that time. And also it's totally stock. And so with those two factors, I figured the GTR was worth a little bit more, but we'll just see, how much interest I have. So in regards to the maintenance and upcoming services that need to be done on the car, I'm actually still on the original rotors. That'll give you kind of an idea on how much I've babied the car. And the pads still have some life left in them. I did a video on the brakes on a GTR, and so you can actually see kind of what my pads look like and what my rotors look like if you're interested in that. But at some point, probably within, I would say, the first year of ownership of this car, you'd probably be well off to actually replace the rotors and the pads. But that'll be kind of up to you on how aggressive that you drive it. I mean, I could probably drive it good 2 or 3 more years without actually replacing the brakes. So the other big question on GTRs is the transmission. I did a whole series of videos on GTR transmissions. As far as I can tell, my transmission is still working great. And people will say this that are selling their GTR, that they never launched it. I never launched this car, and I've had no transmission issues at all. And so if I'm still on the same transmission at almost 130,000, you know that I didn't really abuse the transmission or the car at all. I did get both the transmission and differential serviced at about 110, 115,000 miles. And so there's still probably a good 15,000 left on those fluids. But you know, if you, I guess, want to be making sure that when you take ownership of the car, you want to get those fluids replaced, you know, it might be something that you want to do. But I think it's still good for a little while. The transmission kind of makes the kind of clunky sounds that normal GTRs do. So as it's shifting, downshifting, and upshifting, you'll hear a little bit of a clunk, but that's absolutely normal for GTRs. I did do a couple of videos specifically on the bell housing and what you can do to kind of future-proof your bell housing. Mine makes a little bit of noise. It's not overly bad. And I think it's relatively normal for a 10, 15,000 mile GTR to have a little bit of bell housing noise. But yeah, I don't think it's anything that would really bother you. But I will go ahead and start the car and let you listen to it just so that you have an idea on what it sounds like when it's running. And so we'll do that. So let's go ahead and do a little tour around the exterior of my GTR, and I'll point out, you know, some of the blemishes. Now know that I never had the car wrapped, and I also didn't get ceramic coating or anything like that. So, you know, I did take care of the exterior, but this is, you know, a 130,000 mile car that's, you know, 12 years old. So it's not going to be perfect, but certainly you could add a wrap, you know, to kind of make it look a little bit better. But you know, I still get people all the time that are pointing out the car and walk up to me and, you know, say, oh my God, this is such a beautiful car. So yeah, I think it still looks great, but let's go ahead and walk around. All right, so we're looking at the driver's side of the GTR. I'll kind of move in a little bit so you can see the paint. No real blemishes here on the driver's side that I really notice. Somebody did key my car at one point, and you can, I think you can kind of see that. Yeah, you can kind of see that right there. I never got it taken care of, but that's something you could probably fix relatively easily or inexpensively. On the side view mirror here, I do have a little scratch. I believe that was, I'm gonna blame everything on my wife, just so you know. She drove my car sometimes. Here's the front wheel of the GTR. I probably need to clean that a little bit. It does have a little curb rash, so you'll see that right here. And maybe there's a little bit more down there, but not much. But this wheel doesn't look too bad. That's the front driver's side wheel. Let's see, there's a little thing right here. Don't know if you can see that. Here is the driver's side rear wheel. That actually looks pretty good. Maybe a little bit of curb rash way down on the bottom there. This looks good. I do have a little bit of oxidation on the spoiler. While I was working, I didn't garage the car, and so you'll see a little bit of that. That could probably just be painted real quick. You could probably take that spoiler off and get that painted for you. A little scratch right here. I don't know if you can see that. Now, one thing that did happen, once again, a wife thing. This was a backing up where she backed up into the garage. So the garage took the brunt of it, but there's a little bit of a ding right there. So hopefully you can see that. But it's just aesthetic, and it can probably get fixed relatively inexpensively, but I'm not positive. Going around the passenger side, just a little bit. I think I could actually buff that one out. There's a little bit of a scratch there. And looking at the rest of the passenger side. Oh, here's the wheel. So you can see this one has some curb rash here. I actually did that one. And goes down. And this front passenger side wheel actually looks really good. No problems there. I did say things about rock chips. So you'll see on the hood that there's some little rock chips. Probably should have had it wrapped. But I mean, probably some touch-up paint or something like that maybe would work. Here's the front of the car. There's some little something right here. But the actual bumper, other than that, looks great. Let me show you the underside of the bumper as well, because that's where a lot of GTR owners will have some issues. So let me show you that real quick. All right, so this is the front lip. There's a little bit something right here. But if you've looked at other GTRs and their front lip, most of them are much worse than this one. I've been very careful because the GTR is just so low. All right, so here's the roof of the GTR. Little oxidation right there. You might be able to actually buff that out. But the roof actually looks really good. There's the rear glass, no problems there. Let me go ahead and open up the trunk. All right, here's the trunk. Actually, I need to vacuum in here. I haven't done much in the trunk yet, but no problems in the trunk area. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at the interior of the GTR. All right, so looking at the interior, somebody actually pointed this out and I didn't realize it. This is actually a little protective plastic that I actually never removed. So I'm gonna actually kind of just leave that on for now. Let's see, here's the driver's side door. There is a little bit of problems right here, so you'll see that. But other than that, it looks really good. Okay, now you will see there are some problems with the driver's seat. So this is typical on GTRs. They've got this little metal piece right here, and as you're sitting, I guess it rubs up against it. There's some problems, you know. I looked at getting a new seat. They're pretty expensive. I guess as an owner, you could probably take this maybe to an upholstery shop and maybe they could just kind of cover it. And we also do have some problems right here as well. Yeah, that's the only major interior problems. The seat actually, other than those two issues, looks fine. So let's go in the back real quick. Well, it's a little dusty back here, but yeah, nobody ever used the back seat. I did have my dogs in here a couple of times in the back, which was a mistake. But other than that, It's really clean back here, no problems at all. Yeah, everything for the most part in here is pretty good. The passenger seat, we didn't do a whole lot of trips in the car with my wife. Occasionally my wife would be in the car, but mostly she would drive it. If we, whenever she kind of wanted to, that was pretty much our deal. But yeah, I was in it, she would drive it to work and stuff like that. But you can see the dash looks still relatively new. There's the visors, those still are great. The headliner is still really good. It looks pretty much new. I talked about the back seats, those are fine. Here's the center console and the little cup holders. There's some little wrinkling in here though. I don't know if you can see that. So there's your multimedia display and your AC controls. That still looks relatively new. There's your multimedia display there. I always like to have the boost showing and the engine temperature. Let's see, there's your speedometer and tachometer and fuel, and everything on here works really good. The one thing, and this is typical for GTRs as well as that front seat that I showed you, is that these LEDs by the 7 and 8,000 RPMs, those LEDs are dim or almost out. So yeah, it doesn't affect the driving or really the viewing at all, but you should know that. You'll see that at night, not during the day. The volume controls, and this is another thing that's typical with the GTRs. Let me turn the radio back on. So sometimes it works, sometimes it goes the opposite direction. It's kind of annoying. So what I do basically is I just use the volume controls on the steering wheel. And so that works. But yeah, JD Archer actually did a video on fixing the volume controls, so you can look into doing that if you want to. But I mean, for the most part, the interior on this car, it looks great, I think. For a 130,000 mile car, I think it looks great. And really, you know, I just did a whole lot of driving, but a lot of it was freeway driving, and a lot of it was with myself. And so, yeah, other than the little thing right here, and maybe the volume control's not working, the interior, I think, just looks really awesome. So you'll be really happy with the inside of your GTR. All right, so looking under the hood of the GTR, like I said, this is stock. I really haven't had anything done to it. The only thing, the major thing that I had done, that actually took a couple of shops, because I had taken it to initially a performance shop that typically works on my car, and they had problems doing the timing chain. They just couldn't get it quite right, so I ended up finding a local Nissan dealer that had a really good GTR tech, and he was able to resolve it. So, so they had to kind of open it up and stuff like that to get the timing chain taken care of. But that's very common, once again, on GTRs. Right around 90,000 is usually when they go out. And it's in a pretty expensive service, probably around $5,000 or $6,000. So, you know, I guess that's one good thing about this particular car, the high mileage, is it has had that timing chain already done, and so you don't have to worry about that. I don't think I've replaced the battery in quite a while, so that probably would need to be replaced at one time or at some point. So yeah, I don't know what the date on that. I think they probably have the date on that. I can't see it though. But it's an 84-month battery, but that will probably eventually need to be replaced. So let me go ahead and turn on the engine and let that run, and then you can listen to it, and you can kind of hear the bell housing noise. Oh, one thing, the AC works fine. I've actually had problems with the AC twice, I think at around 40,000 miles or 30, somewhere around 35, 40,000 miles. I do have a spreadsheet available that shows you when all the maintenance was done on the car, and so I will, anybody that's really interested in it, I will share that. And I do have physical records as well, so if you come out and look at the car, I'll show you the physical records that I have. Yeah, so I guess there's a control amplifier as well as a relay, and I think the last 2 times I actually had to get the control amplifier replaced, but it ends up being pretty expensive, because then they have to evacuate the refrigerant, the Freon, and then refill it. So, but yeah, no AC problems on this at all. The AC is like super, super cold, so it works really good. The car doesn't overheat at all. I have it on I live in Las Vegas, and I drive it in stop and go traffic and on the freeway, 115, 120 degrees, and yeah, it stays cool as a cucumber, so no problems at all with overheating. It just, it's been very reliable. All right, so we're looking underneath the engine bay, and you can kind of hear the engine running. And so I really don't hear at all any sort of bell housing rattle. And typically a car, a GTR that has a bell housing rattle, you will hear it, especially when the car is just sitting there idling. Now it hasn't totally warmed up yet, but yeah, this is, as far as I'm concerned, the transmission is still working great, and very little bell housing noise. So I'm gonna go ahead and take it for a little spin, and so I'll let you hear it as I'm driving the car. The other thing about the car is it's always been garage, so I don't imagine very many people have a GTR and don't garage it, but yeah, I constantly had it garaged. The only bad thing, and I think I mentioned this, is that when I worked, I'm currently retired, but when I worked, I did have it in the parking lot, not in a garage, and so that's where some of that oxidation is showing up. So I do have a Carfax report for the car. You might want to consider getting a PPI done, although, like I said, this car is totally stock, so I don't imagine it would show anything. I would entertain, though, if you are interested in a PPI, perhaps sharing the cost of it. But yeah, that would happen after we get a little more serious. In regards to Carfax report, there does show one accident. Now, it wasn't really an accident. So basically I was backing out of a parking lot, and there was a curb, a parking block, and as I was backing out, it actually grabbed the bumper here and actually tore kind of part of it off. And so basically I had the whole front bumper replaced. And yeah, that was a little more expensive than I thought it was gonna be to get that front bumper replaced. But yeah, it is what it is. It shows as an accident on Carfax, but it wasn't. So there you go. All right, so let's go ahead and take a little virtual test drive. So you'll kind of hear what the car sounds like, and yeah, hopefully this helps you if you're evaluating the car, whether or not to come out for a test drive. But here we go. So here's what kind of, once again, this is stock, so I don't have any exhaust or anything, so it's not gonna be crazy sounding, great exhaust. But here's what the stock GTR sounds like. Okay, and once again, from the inside of a GTR, if you had some serious bell housing rattle, you would definitely hear that, and there's not much to hear. This is just a stock GTR, and the bell housing, I think, is still relatively good. All right, so I'm basically just gonna take it on the freeway real quick and do a quick loop and then loop back around. This trip will probably take me about 10 minutes, but if you are interested in this car, you probably just wanna hear kind of what it sounds like you know, in like a little 10-minute drive. And so, yeah, it's not going to be super interesting, but if you are interested in this car, hopefully this helps you. So I am going to put it, the only thing I usually do is put it in comfort mode. I don't ever turn on the R settings. I've got actually a video that talks about that. I'm going to turn the AC on. It's a little bit warm. And here we go. So you would have heard the transmission shift, and it sounds like a little clunky, and that's just that's just the way GTRs sound. GTRs are very mechanical. They will talk to you. So I'm just in my neighborhood right here, and we're just going to take it on the freeway real quick. The freeway is about 5 miles away or so. Now, if you are interested in something that is a little more luxurious and still is a GTR, the 2017s and up are certainly a lot quieter. I think starting in 2014, I think the transmission became a little bit better, a little quieter, and a little softer. But it seems like as the GTRs over the years became more of a touring car, they became softer, they became less raw. Yeah, I actually think the best years of the GTR, I think the best year of the GTR is actually 2013. I think that one had a good amount of horsepower. The transmissions were improved a little bit, the shifting was smoother, but you still had that raw feeling. 2012 was also a really, really good year for the GTR because that was the first year they came out with the official launch control, and they did some things with the transmission that improved it and made the transmission more durable. And so it's hard to go wrong really with a 2012 or a 2013. Jeep Wrangler just passed me. Every time I see a Jeep Wrangler, I'm like, ooh, I'm gonna get that thing soon. So me and my wife, I finally got my wife on board with the Jeep Wrangler. She couldn't understand why I wanted one because we have a Mustang convertible for the convertible driving. But you know, having that off-road capabilities as well as it can tow, and the convertible aspect of it is just so cool. Just a quick little acceleration right there, you'd have heard it. I don't have like a really professional mounting system or anything. I'm just kind of using my tripod and putting it on the side of the car. So hopefully when I do the big acceleration, I'll have to, hopefully it doesn't fall over. Yeah, so you can tell you don't really hear any sort of, at least I don't, especially when it gets warmed up. The one thing about the GTR is when it isn't warmed up and when you're driving it kind of docile, it's kind of clunky. And if you are interested in this GTR and you haven't driven a GTR before, it's going to be a little different than what you might expect if you've driven other cars, because it is so raw and you hear a lot of interesting noises and it's just kind of rough around the edges. But what's kind of interesting about the GTR is, you know, once you get it up to speed and you really get on it, that's when the GTR all of a sudden becomes this like precision driving instrument, and the shifts are clean and crisp, and that's very much what this car is. It's really, there's really nothing out there like a GTR, and you know, I really think that this engine and this transmission will still perform just as well as some of the low mileage GTRs that are out there. So I really wouldn't let the mileage, especially given the low price of this thing, I wouldn't let the mileage scare you. you know, anything can go wrong with GTRs at any point. You know, but this one hasn't been abused, and so you don't have to worry about that. All right, so we're gonna head on the freeway. I'm gonna jump on it. I'm gonna go ahead and put it in R modes for this acceleration run. And here we go. Yeah, so that was kind of fun. So basically got that freeway run done, and I'm going to turn around and head on home. That thing does love to run, well, I'll tell you. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it off, and hopefully this little virtual test drive, hopefully this gave you an idea on kind of what my GTR sounds like, how it performs or how it sounds when you're accelerating, you know, kind of what the feel of the GTR is as you're driving it around. Yeah, if you are interested in this car, please comment on this video or comment on Facebook where I post this information, and I'll be sure to get back to you. On the description of this video, I will have kind of a GTR interest form that it would be really helpful if you could fill that out, just to let me know that you are interested in it, and it gives me some information about you. I will also have the Carfax report on the video's description as well, so you can see that information. And the other thing that I've done is I've set up an email account, a Gmail account specifically for this car. So the email account is 2012.gtr.4.sale@gmail.com. And so I will be monitoring that email account, and so you can also email me at that address. So you probably will notice that I had custom plates made for this car. It's Godzilla, and I'm sure gonna miss him. But hopefully, those of you that are interested in it and a future buyer of this car, hopefully you love them just as much as I did, and hopefully, you know, maybe you'll make some cool modifications, do full bolt-on, and have this car really, you know, perform like it's designed to perform, instead of some old guy just kind of driving around the neighborhoods. I do hope to sell the car in the next couple of months, and if I can sell it privately, then I'll go ahead and try to sell it on consignment, but I'm hoping that, you know, I can actually sell it privately. So if you are interested, please get in touch with me, and I hope to talk to you soon.
I've seen a lot of change, been through a lot of pain. Some things are not the same as they were a year ago, but all will be okay. I move on each and every day. The past is where it stays, way back a year ago.